Harriett Baldwin.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker, and may I welcome you also to your chair. It is an absolute privilege to speak in this important debate on poverty and to follow such outstanding maiden speeches from the Honourable Member for Leicester West and my honourable friend for Brigg and Goole. I would like to start my maiden speech by paying tribute to my predecessor, soon to be ennobled as Lord Spicer of Cropthorne in the county of Worcestershire, for his years of service to the West Worcestershire and, prior to that, the South Worcestershire constituency. He was elected to Parliament 9 times during his 36 years of service to Worcestershire residents. And during my almost 4 years as parliamentary candidate, I met so many people on the doorstep who paid tribute to his service as a constituency MP and to his energetic pursuit of their casework. It's a standard which I shall struggle to maintain. For 3 decades, he championed the case for a new community hospital for Malvern. And I'm delighted that after 30 years, my constituents and I will welcome the opening of its doors this coming October. Here in Westminster, he had a stellar career as well, serving as a minister under Margaret Thatcher, and of course latterly known to the backbenchers of this side of the House as chairman of the 1922 committee, a position to which he stood for many years unopposed. He was clearly admired here by colleagues every bit as much as he was by his constituents, and I will not presume to match his achievements, merely to work hard on behalf of the constituents of West Worcestershire and to try every day to serve their interests to the best of my ability. I would also like to reassure all of my neighbouring honourable friends that, unlike the Right Honourable Member for Hitchin and Harpenden, I need not aspire to any neighbouring territory in any future boundary review. This is because the Baldwin ward is already part of the West Worcestershire constituency, named, of course, after Britain's 3-time Prime Minister Stanley Baldwin, who lived at Astley. Now, Stanley Baldwin's Bewdley constituency contained much of the same beautiful scenery as the current West Worcestershire constituency, and so I'm often asked on the doorstep if I am his granddaughter. In fact, more often than not, they say, "I hear you are Stanley Baldwin's granddaughter." So I'm grateful to you, Mr. Deputy Speaker, for allowing me to put the record straight in Hansard. My maiden name was Eggleston, and my husband was christened James Stanley Baldwin. Obviously, my mother-in-law was a big fan, but so far we have not been able to find any family linkage beyond the name. I was so concerned about getting elected on false pretences, with an overestimation of both my ability and my ambition, that I even answered this question in my election address. Nevertheless, I'm proud to be called Baldwin, and it's a very good and widespread surname to have in West Worcestershire. I hope that honourable members will indulge me if I paint a picture of the many attractive aspects of the West Worcestershire constituency. It is the heart of England, and from the fertile plains of the Severn Valley rises the solitary western final hill of the Cotswolds, Bredon Hill, which was an inspiration to A.E. Housman, the great English poet. The River Avon meanders around the beautiful Georgian town of Pershore on its way to join up with the River Severn, creating floodplains and fields which are famous for being able to grow the most succulent asparagus. Then, on the west of the River Severn, across more fine fields, pasture, orchards and common land, the Malvern Hills rise up suddenly to very great height. It's said that if you stand on the top of the Malvern Hills and look due east, you will not see a higher hill until you get to the Urals. It's true. The county border runs along the summit, but the West Worcestershire constituency that stretches to the north and west of the hills runs up the River Teme Valley to the town of Tenbury Wells, and then as far north as villages such as Bayton and Mamble, which have Dudley postcodes. The 4 main towns of Malvern, Pershore, Upton upon Severn and Tenbury Wells are complemented by over 70 different parishes, all with their own charms, It's particularly worth noting that the great English composer Elgar was born at Lower Broadheath. And throughout his life, he drew musical inspiration from the scenery and landscape of the Malvern Hills. Food production is very important locally. I've mentioned the asparagus crop, but you can also eat delicious local cherries, apples, pears. You can enjoy locally raised eggs, chickens, turkeys, geese, beef, pork and lamb. To drink with that, you can have the pure Malvern water, you can drink beer, cider and locally produced wine, and I'm sure other honourable members will want to join me in my efforts here in this place to promote our wonderful local food. Yeah. You can buy locally produced milk and honey as well, but in this afternoon's debate on poverty, I want to use this opportunity to highlight some of the causes of poverty in West Worcestershire. I was delighted to hear the Minister mention drug use. It's not unknown in the constituency, particularly in some of the more deprived areas. And I don't need to remind honourable members about how badly drug use can ruin lives. And I'm particularly keen to use my time in this House to work with local residents, with the police, with charities and social enterprises to help people tackle addiction and to ensure that those who deal in drugs are shown no tolerance. Yeah. The population of West Worcestershire is one of the older demographic profiles in this country, and I want to raise in this debate some of the challenges of poverty amongst the elderly. I'm very keen that this government makes progress on the issue of paying for long-term residential care. Yeah. Many of my constituents worry about having to pay for their care and having to sell their homes in old age. I do hope that we can support them with a voluntary insurance scheme, and also that the coalition government is able to come forward with other proposals that will help all of us afford the increasing cost of looking after our elderly citizens with dignity and respect. Before coming into Parliament, I was a pension fund manager, and one of the many scandalous legacies of the outgoing government is the way in which it destroyed the private pension system that used to be the envy of the world. However, the unfunded liability of the public pension system has increased enormously, and we're all living longer, and so the current situation is completely unsustainable. A pensioner in my constituency on modest savings, who has lived responsibly and within her means all her life, has to face an annual increase in her council tax, which is very often due to the need for the local council and local police to make an even greater provision for their future pension entitlements. This results in real poverty for pensioners who have a small amount of savings and are thus unable to claim pension credit. These days, very few people in the private sector are saving enough for their greater longevity either. We are storing up terrible pensioner poverty for the future in this country. The government has made a welcome start on tackling the fiscal deficit, but Mr. Deputy Speaker, I hope this government and this Parliament can also tackle and begin to address the long-term pension savings deficit in this country too. Mr. Deputy Speaker, I'm extremely grateful for this opportunity that you've given me to make my maiden speech in this important debate today. I look forward to using my time in this House to serve the good people of West Worcestershire, both here at Westminster and in the local community, as the government takes on some of these long-term challenges. Yeah.